Okay, this is the application part of Chapter 2. So just really quickly, the SQL is interpreted. So that means that when you write the code, that code is not compiled. That means the server that, and it may be your notebook running SQL Plus or Oracle on it, or mainframe, may actually be taking those commands word by word and then interpreting them on the fly. So that's what's meant by interpreted. That SQL Plus, the SQL Plus is an interpreter and it runs in interpreted mode. On the other hand, conversely, computer programs like a C# program or something else, you typically write the code and you compile it, and then the computer, the server, will run it in a compiled manner. That'll be more efficient for the program itself, because it doesn't have to go the mainframe, the server doesn't have to go through a process of interpreting what the commands mean and changing it into machine language. Okay, so with that, let's see. SQL commands are not case sensitive. Sometimes you'll see in the text where the commands themselves are case sensitive. There's sort of a general, what's the word I'm looking for, where convention, a kind of a standard writing convention, if you will, that the commands, some of the commands are uppercase and some of the rest of the scripts are lowercase. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's see. The other thing to note, and this says, when creating database tables that contain foreign key references, you must first create the table with the primary key, and then you can create the table with the corresponding foreign key. So the foreign key is secondary to the primary key. So if you have a primary key and a foreign key, that table with that primary key has to be created before the foreign key table. Because if you tried to create the foreign key table first, due to integrity constraints, that each one of those entries in that foreign key has to have a value in the corresponding primary key. Okay, so you have to again, you have to run or create the table with the primary key before the foreign key. And if you have a large database, that can get pretty confusing. Okay, so just keep that in mind. With excuse me, with the databases that we're running, the sizes that they are, it's not going to be a big deal. Well, it is going to be a deal, but it's not going to be a huge, overwhelming deal. Now, this is what the table, or a table structure looks like. When you build a table, this is what it looks like. The SQL command is create table, and then whatever that name of that table is called, and then within parentheses, you have a field definition. Well, the definition, or the name of this field, is location underscore ID. That's probably going to be a primary key. By convention, put the primary keys first. You don't have to, but by convention, do that. And then it's a number field, and it's six numbers wide. Comma. Make sure that syntax is correct, comma. And then the next field, building code, it's a varchar 2, parentheses 10. That means it's up to 10 characters wide, but it can be smaller than that. Room varchar 2, 6, comma. Okay, remember the commas. The syntax is like 90% of your problems within this course. Capacities and number at 5, and then we put the constraint on the primary key. So constraint location loc ID pk. That's simply a name. This is simply a name. It says it's convention also. It's naming convention. Table, and then field, and what kind of key is it in the name itself, and then primary key, and then what is that primary key referencing? Local ID or loc ID. Okay, now this slide goes and points out those very things. What does this naming convention look like? Well, location is the table. Remember, we're talking about the constraint and what the constraint's name is. Location is a table. Location ID is this field. PK is a primary key, and the words, you have to use the words primary key or foreign key, whatever you may have, and then what's that reference? Okay, now when we take a look at this, another table, okay, and this is called the faculty table. It's not location, it's the faculty table. We have a primary key. Okay, we can see that by constraint faculty f underscore ID pk. Notice where that name came from. Primary key FID, so it ties it, that calls this field a primary key. You have f last, and the corresponding data type at first, middle initial, char, one character wide only. Now, this is where the foreign key comes in. So you have the table with this is the primary key table, okay, the primary table, the first table, location ID. Now the foreign key has to tie to it. Okay, that's how you tie these two things together, these two tables together. So, and then you have the rest of the fields and data types. Constraint primary key, we already looked at that. Now, you have to put together a constraint for a foreign key. So this constraint, now faculty, name of this table, faculty underscore location ID, this field underscore FK for a foreign key. We want to call it a foreign key. What does it reference within this table? What is the foreign key within this table? And then what does it reference outside? The location table and loc underscore ID in the other table in location. Okay, so that's what that syntax looks like. And that has, you know, syntax is everything. There's commas here. Make sure, and two sets of parentheses, semicolon ends the command. It has to be right. Just like any kind of programming, it has to be right. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this, creating and editing SQL commands using a text editor, and I'm going to go ahead and run some of this first. So a good approach for entering commands: type the commands into a text editor such as Notepad, Notepad++. We've talked about that. Copy commands and paste them into SQL, then execute the commands. Okay, and we're going to create scripts. These are all scripts. So what I've done is, what do I want to do? Do I want to use this example? Yes. I'll point out what this example is. Create table location. We've looked at that. This primary key is location ID, loc ID. Create table location, and then this is what it looks like when you copy it into SQL. It'll say table is created, and then and this is talking about adding some additional coding for not nulls. Now, typically within this particular code, we leave all of the constraints off, and it is simpler and easier for us to do that. In this class, this is the code that you might use to put not nulls on all of these different fields. A primary key by default is unique and not null. It has to be unique and not null. Okay, so I'm going to grab this and copy it. Okay, I'm going to take it and put it into my text editor. Now I have something else in here already that I'm going to use, but I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to paste this in here. So that's, from your case and from your perspective, you will have typed all of this in. Now I want to do something too. Go to View and let's go to Language, and let's flip the language on this. And we want to use SQL as a language, and now you can see how it color codes this particular code. So we have this code. We want to go into now. There we go. We want to go into SQL. I open it up, connect, system. Okay, now also what you want to make sure that you do is right click in properties and make sure quick edit mode is on. If it's not on, turn it on. So this will come back in just a second, depends on how busy the machine is. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to highlight that entire script. Okay, I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to Control-C to copy it. Click over into run SQL command line, and I'm going to wait for the SQL prompt to come back. So I'm going to pause this video. Okay, the SQL prompt it's connected. The database is connected, and I'm ready to go. Now, once again, let me go back to this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this whole script, copy it, click over into Run SQL command line, right click to paste it, and then hit Enter. And with any luck, the table is created. And then I'm going to go and type in DESC for describe, and the table name, as we can see here, is location. Semicolon. There we go. That's what it looks like. Okay. Now with that, let's go on to the next slide. We've already described it, Adding constraints. Let's see. Here's some additional. You're going to be asked to alter the table in some way. Adding constraints, disabling constraints, different things like that. Now, if you get really messed up, you can always go ahead and just drop the table. So I'm going to go and to do that, you want to drop table location cascade constraints, or just replace a location with a particular table you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into SQL and drop table location. So if something's messed up, if I want to get rid of this, if I want to restart it, reset it, something like that, I want to drop it, means delete it. Dropping is a DDL command, means deleting it. Removing it completely. Cascade constraints means that this primary key that's been created is going to be gone. Okay, that will return here in a second. And I'm going to type in describe location. The object doesn't exist, so it's been removed. Now, what I'd like to do is go back into this particular set of problems. This is a customer database, and with all the scripts, create table customer, all the fields, it sets up the primary key. It sets up a table called category with create table category, sets up the primary key here. We have item, now, and go back to some of the pictures from the PowerPoints that we've used that's looked at this Clearwater Traders database. Well, this is it. Okay, we have order source and we have orders. Okay, so I'm going to go and from this script grab this particular table, copy it with a Control-C, click in, name's already used. Okay, since I've already used the name, I'm going to drop table customer, because remember I built one the other day and demonstrated it. Okay, so I've dropped the table and I've recreated the table with customer, that same name. I'm going to go out to category and create that table. Now in this case I'm going to go ahead and grab, you can grab more if you want, copy, paste, and you see how it goes ahead and creates item. Now order source was an unknown command because you see that's not part of the command. This is actually part of the command, but I grabbed this as well, so it said unknown command, but then I went ahead out here and created the table order source. If it ends up in that semicolon like that, I just hit enter. Okay, now so with that, if I type in describe orders, SC orders, was it order? Did I not create that one? Oh, order source. I didn't create orders yet. See, most of the time that you screw up, or the problems that you have, is because you screw up yourself. And if I recall, I didn't put orders in, and I'm trying to look at the orders table. That doesn't work. So I'm going to go down and create that. Table's created. Remember, that's table orders. And then I'm going to go ahead and describe orders. And there it is. So I've created a whole bunch of tables already within this. That's how you do that. You just copy and paste, and then the next video is going to talk about, and this sequence is going to talk about how to go ahead and do your homework. So I think that as I look through the rest of this, the last thing I would want to do is simply type in exit, and that should exit me out of the program. So thank you very much.